The celluvar drifted in the quiet darkness of space, and its lights flickered and weak, as if the ship itself was breathing with difficulty, and the crew moved slowly because every action hurt now, and every sound felt too loud in the silence. Around them and the Thaleen were not strong creatures because their bodies were built for gentle worlds with soft air and calm oceans, and their hearts were simple and peaceful, and they were afraid because they had never expected to be trapped so far from home with almost no power and almost no hope, and the last storm of debris had torn open half their systems, and now the cold was creeping into every room, and the air felt thinner with every hour. Their captain stood near the main console, and his hands trembled over the controls, and he felt the weight of his crew behind him. Because they all looked to him for safety, and he had nothing left to give except one final choice, and he knew no. Nearby ally was close enough to hear their voices, so he sent out the old distress call that the lean ships used in emergencies, and he hoped it would reach someone kind, but he feared it would reach no one at all. The signal traveled out like a whisper across empty space, and the Thaleen closed their eyes and waited, because waiting was all they could do now in their small hearts. Beat too fast as they tried to stay calm, but fear pushed into every corner of their minds because this part of the galaxy was not mapped well and strange. Warnings floated around it in old stories, spoke of strange species that lived in the deeper dark, and none of the stories were comforting. The signal flew far past where the Thaleen expected, and it touched strange currents of cosmic noise and bent around star clusters, and moved with surprising speed toward a system they had never heard of, and they watched the screen as the beacon blinked, and they saw something they did not expect, and the console showed that a response had been detected, but it was not from any gentle world or peaceful alliance, but from the blue and green system. It's marked with a single word used across many species, and the word was soul. And every Thaleen on the ship felt cold fear rise up inside them, because Sol was not a place they wanted their signal to reach, because Sol was home to a species the galaxy knew in stories, but not in person, and every story said the same thing about them, and the name other species gave them was Deathworlders. The Thaleen healer whispered for the captain to shut the signal off before the humans answered, but the captain only looked at the weakening lights of his ship and the thinning air. And he knew that even if he turned the signal off now, it was too late, and he told them that the humans had already heard, and they were already coming, and the crew fell into a frightened silence, and some began to shake in fear. Because they had never met a Deathworlder before, but they had heard enough to imagine the worst. They spoke in small voices about the old tales that painted humans as creatures who survived anything and fought anything, and lived on a violent world where storms were fierce, and animals were deadly, and plants were sharp like claws, and everything tried to kill them, and yet they still thrived and grew, and built ships and reached the stars. And for the Thaleen this was not a comforting thought, because they were gentle and fragile, and the idea of a species that could endure a world that tried to crush them left the Thaleen feeling tiny and helpless. The captain tried to calm them, but he was scared too, and he remembered hearing that humans could be unpredictable and loud and bold, and that they moved fast and spoke fast and felt things with too much intensity, and he wondered what would happen when the humans arrived, and he hoped they would be patient and peaceful and not violent, because the Thaleen could not defend themselves now, not even a little. The crew continued to watch the sensors, and they saw the human ship approaching, and its speed shocked them because it moved faster than they expected, and it moved with purpose and confidence, and the Thaleen saw the large engines glowing as the ship slowed near them, and the humans sent a soft signal, and the translator showed that the humans were asking if they were safe and asking if they needed help, and the words seemed so simple, yet the Thaleen did not fully trust them, because they feared what hidden meaning might be inside. The air grew colder, and the lights dimmed lower, and some of the lean collapsed from the thinness of the atmosphere, and the captain knew that if they refused help, they would all die soon, because the systems were failing fast and the temperature was dropping, and no one on the ship was strong enough to repair anything now. He answered the human signal with slow, careful words and told them they were in danger, and the humans responded with calm voices, promising to help and promising not to enter without permission, and this surprised the lean because they expected humans to act without asking, but the humans waited, and the waiting itself felt like a small kindness. The captain granted permission, and the humans prepared to board, and the Thaleen huddled together in fear because they imagined towering figures with sharp eyes and heavy steps, and they imagined cold hands and strong grips and voices that shook walls. But when the airlock door opened and the humans stepped inside, the Thaleen were surprised again because the humans moved slowly and kept their hands where everyone could see them, and their faces were calm and their voices were soft, and they seemed so careful not to frighten anyone. The human leader spoke through a small device and told them they were safe and the humans would help, and the Thaleen could not understand how a species with such a frightening reputation could speak with such gentle tones and offer help with such simple kindness. The humans began checking the damage, and the Thaleen watched as the humans worked with quiet focus and steady hands, and the humans kept explaining each action as if trying to comfort the Thaleen. And the captain felt a strange mix of fear and hope as he watched, because the humans were not what he imagined, and he wondered if the stories were wrong or if the humans were simply different than what others claimed. The air system slowly came back online, and the temperature stopped dropping, and the lights brightened a little, and the Thaleen felt relief wash over them, and some began to cry because they had been so afraid of the humans, and yet the humans were the only ones who came and the only ones strong enough to save them. The captain stood quietly as the human leader approached him, and the human offered a small nod and said they were glad to help in something. About the simple words felt honest and warm, and the captain felt hope returning to his chest, even though danger still loomed in the shadows of space, and even though they did not yet know what had damaged their ship so badly, and even though they did not yet know what waited for them in the dark beyond their broken vessel. But for the first time, the disaster began. The Thaleen felt they might survive because the Deathworlders had come, and they were not monsters but rescuers. Commander Riley Torres sat in the control room of the listening station and stared at the screen where a faint signal was blinking in a rhythm that was almost like a heartbeat, and her hands rested lightly on the console because she wanted to feel calm, but inside she was already alert and curious, and the signal was unlike anything they had recorded before. And it came from a part of space that was dark and empty according to their maps, and yet there it was, moving through the void like someone was calling for help. And she leaned forward and adjusted the frequency, and the signal cleared. And she could hear the soft pattern of the message, and when the translator decoded it, she saw words that made her heart race because it was a clear and simple request for rescue from an alien species, and she called her assistant over and showed him the screen. And he nodded quickly, and they both understood that this was the first real contact they could have with a peaceful civilization beyond their world, and she felt a mixture of fear and excitement, because the unknown always carried danger and opportunity at the same time. The station began sending messages back slowly and carefully because they did not want to scare the aliens or make them distrust humans, and the aliens responded with hesitation, and the screen showed signs of relief when they realized someone had heard them and that someone wanted to help. And Riley thought about how different this moment was from everything she had trained for, because she was used to monitoring planets and stars, and now she was responsible for first contact with a real living species, and she hoped they would be gentle and kind. So the signal sounded fragile, and the alien language seemed soft and slow, and she worried that humans could seem too strong or too loud and frighten them. She called the Space Council and told them the situation, and they agreed to send a rescue ship because they understood that this might be the first chance for humanity to show that humans could be friendly and careful and not just explorers or conquerors. And so the fleet began preparing the Pathfinder with a crew trained for rescue missions and diplomacy and careful observation, and Riley selected the best engineers and medics and scientists she could find, because every one of them would need to remain calm and patient when they met the aliens, and they all trained together for a few days. Even though the ship was leaving almost immediately, and they reviewed every emergency scenario they could imagine, and even some they could not imagine, because space was full of surprises and unknown threats, and Riley reminded them to move slowly and speak softly and to never assume anything about the aliens they were going to meet. As the Pathfinder left Earth's orbit and moved toward the dark space where the signal originated, Riley looked at the stars through the viewing window and felt a mixture of wonder and fear, because this was real now and not just a simulation, and she thought about the stories humans told about other species, and how sometimes humans were considered the most dangerous and most unpredictable beings in the galaxy, and she wondered what the aliens would think when they saw humans for the first time, because humans were strong and resilient and loud, quick to act, and all of these traits could be frightening to a fragile species, and she made a note to remind the crew again to be gentle and patient, and not to assume that the aliens would understand human intentions at first. The crew spent long hours in preparation, and every system on the ship was checked carefully, and the medics prepared small healing tools and machines that could help fragile bodies, and the engineers practiced repairing systems in a slow, careful way, because they had been told that the aliens' technology might be delicate and old, and they needed to be careful not to break anything. And the scientists prepared translation devices and recording devices so they could communicate without causing confusion, and everyone knew that one wrong move could ruin everything. And they all felt nervous and excited at the same time, because this was history in the making, and they all understood the responsibility that rested on their shoulders. When the Pathfinder approached the coordinates given by the alien signal, Riley and her crew saw a small damaged vessel drifting slowly in space, and they noticed the lights flickering and the hull showing signs of battle, and Riley felt a sharp ache in her chest, because she imagined the fear inside the ship, and she reminded herself and her crew to stay calm and to move slowly and to speak clearly, and she gave the order for the docking procedure and the airlock to open, and she felt the weight of the moment, because the aliens would see them for the first time, and they might be terrified of humans because of all the stories they had heard or imagined, and yet the humans needed to show they were here to help. The first sight of the aliens took Riley by surprise, because they were small and fragile. Their skin was soft, and their eyes were large and full of fear, and yet also curiosity, and she felt her heart open with care, because she knew that despite their fear, they were not dangerous, and they needed humans now more than anything else, and she spoke gently to them and introduced herself, and the translator worked slowly but clearly, and the aliens responded with quiet voices and cautious movements, and she noticed how every gesture needed to be slow and careful, and every word needed to be simple, because their culture was gentle and everything had to be done with patience and respect, and she reminded the crew constantly to keep their hands visible and move slowly and always speak softly. The medics and engineers entered the ship and began helping the aliens repair the failing systems and stabilize the air and temperature. And they moved slowly and explained every action, and the aliens watched carefully, and their eyes showed fear but also relief, because humans were acting with care and not violence, and Riley stayed close to the captain of the alien ship and spoke in small, simple phrases to reassure him, and she felt the power of trust forming slowly, because trust could be built even in the darkest moments, if the right patience and care were given, and she saw the aliens begin to relax just a little, and the fear that had been frozen on their faces softened, and Riley knew this was only the first step, but it was the most important, because without trust, they could never save them. And she watched as the human crew worked quietly and carefully, and she felt proud, because they understood what it meant to be gentle and strong at the same time. The alien vessel began to respond to the repairs, and slowly the systems powered back on, and the lights brightened a little, and the temperature returned to safe levels, and Riley saw the crew of the aliens gather near the main console, and she smiled softly, because they were beginning to hope again, and she reminded herself that first contact was never just about speaking or exchanging information. It was about showing care and patience, and the humans were doing that well, and she felt a small warmth in her chest, because even though danger still existed in the dark space around them, they had begun something important and fragile and beautiful, and she knew that this moment would be remembered for a long time, because it was the first time humans had reached out to another species simply to help them and not to take or conquer or exploit. Them and the aliens were learning that humans could be strong but gentle, and that perhaps not every story in the galaxy about Deathworlders was true, and that perhaps humans could be allies and friends and protectors when needed, and Riley watched quietly as the work continued, and she felt hope for the first time in a long journey through space. The Thaling crew moved quietly as the humans worked around them, and their large eyes followed every gesture and every small movement, and they whispered among themselves in soft tones because they could not believe that beings called Deathworlders would act with such care, and they were still afraid because fear was built into them. And it would take time for them to trust fully, but slowly they began to see that the humans did not move with violence or harshness, and they did not raise their voices or strike at anything. And even when the humans lifted heavy panels or touched delicate instruments, they did so gently and spoke softly and explained each step, and the captain felt his chest grow lighter because the humans were keeping their promise to help and not harm, and he began to feel that, maybe, just maybe, he had judged them too quickly. The humans worked in teams, medics with engineers and scientists, and they moved carefully to ensure no mistake would make the aliens feel unsafe, and Riley stayed near the captain, speaking simple words that the translator rendered slowly and clearly, and the captain nodded at her words and tried to respond, but his voice shook because it had been a long time since anyone had spoken to him with such gentle tones, and he realized how strong the humans were, but also how patient they could be, and that was something completely new for the Thaling, and it made his heart beat
More calmly.
because even though his ship was damaged and his crew weak, he had hope again. One of the younger Thaling, a technician, moved near a broken console and hesitated because he feared touching it might anger the humans or make the system fail completely, but one of the engineers, a human with calm brown eyes and soft hands, knelt beside him and pointed slowly to each switch and said a few words of encouragement, and the Thaling listened and pressed the correct buttons, and the console began to flicker and respond, and the technician felt pride and relief for the first time since the disaster, and he looked up at the human with gratitude, and the human nodded and smiled softly, and the technician realized that humans could be frightening and strong, but they could also teach and guide without threatening. The captain watched as the medics checked the health of his crew, and they moved slowly, measuring every breath and every pulse, and adjusting the oxygen and temperature, carefully and explaining each action in simple words, and the Thaling crew relaxed a little with every careful touch and every soft word, and the captain felt that a bridge of trust was being built between species that had never met before, and he wondered if other beings in the galaxy could ever feel this level of safety around humans, because he had been taught to fear them, and yet here they were, showing patience, respect, and care. Outside the ship, the Pathfinder remained close and monitored the surroundings, and Riley reminded her crew to stay alert and ready for anything, because even though the immediate danger seemed gone, space was full of unexpected threats, and the Thaling needed protection while their ship was weak. And they were fragile, and the humans had the tools and knowledge to ensure their survival, and Riley felt the weight of responsibility, because every life on the damaged vessel was now in their hands, and she wanted to make sure no harm would come to them. The Thaling began to move more confidently and helped with repairs in small ways, guided by human hands and instructions, and their confidence grew little by little because the humans had made it safe enough to act. And even though their bodies were weak and not designed for fast or heavy work, they felt they could contribute, and that gave them hope and pride, and the captain felt the glow of relief and appreciation for the humans, and for the way they had come to help without fear or demand. The translator continued to work, and every exchange built more understanding because simple words carried meaning and reassurance, and the Thaling began to see humans not as monsters or loud warriors, but as helpers and protectors and teachers and friends, and the captain found himself speaking slowly and clearly, answering questions and asking small questions back, and it felt natural to communicate in this gentle way. And he realized that patience and kindness could break walls of fear faster than weapons ever could. During a pause in the repairs, the captain spoke to Riley about the attack that had damaged their ship, and she listened carefully and asked questions in a calm voice and promised to help them discover what had caused it. And the captain felt a small relief, because for the first time he was talking to someone who would not judge or dismiss him, but would help solve the problem. And he trusted that humans could face danger without panicking and would protect them from any threat that came again. And he began to feel that maybe humans were not only strong and dangerous, but also responsible and brave in the right way. As the repairs continued, the Thaleen began to share small stories of their world, and Riley and the crew listened with attention and curiosity, and the humans asked questions with simple words and small gestures, and the aliens responded more openly because the humans did not rush them and did not mock or dismiss them. And the Thaleen began to laugh softly at memories of their home oceans and gentle rains and soft lights, and the humans smiled back because they were learning about a new life in a new world. And this simple exchange of stories made the Thaleen feel connected and less alone in the dark void of space, and it made Riley feel that first contact was not only about survival, but about friendship and understanding. When the systems were mostly restored, the captain walked through the corridors and saw the humans resting in small clusters, and he noticed how they cared for each other as well, and he realized that their kindness was not only toward the Thaleen, but a part of their nature, and he felt admiration and surprise because he had expected only rough and loud beings, and instead found careful and compassionate ones. And he thought of how stories in the galaxy could be wrong or incomplete, and how important it was to meet beings in person rather than only hearing about them. And he felt a spark of hope for the future, because if humans could be gentle and brave, perhaps the galaxy could learn to trust them, and perhaps other species could find safety and help in their presence. Slowly, the Thaleen began to explore the damaged ship with human guidance, and they learned small repairs and adjustments could make themselves, and every success gave them confidence and hope, and every small gesture of help from the humans strengthened trust. And by the end of the day, the captain felt a warmth in his chest, because despite the dark space around them, despite the dangers they had faced, despite the fear that had held them for so long, they had survived, and they had begun to build a bond with a species they had been taught to fear. And he knew this bond could change their world and the stories of their people forever. And he looked at Riley and the crew and realized that sometimes the strongest beings were not only those who could fight, but also those who could be patient and kind and brave, and that the humans were exactly that. The humans continued to work carefully through the damaged corridors of the Thaleen ship, and the aliens watched every movement and slowly began to trust them more and more, because the humans did not rush or shout or push them aside in every hand. Movement was gentle, and each word was soft and clear, and the medics checked every Thaleen crew member and made small adjustments to their breathing and temperature, and every line began to relax a little more with each careful touch and explanation. And the captain felt hope growing, because the humans were proving that they were strong but also patient, and that combination was something that Thaleen had never seen before, and they could not fully understand it yet, but they felt it in their hearts. The engineers worked on broken power conduits and slowly restored energy to sections of the ship that had been dead and dark for hours, and the Thaleen helped under guidance, and their hands were small and delicate, and the humans adjusted tools and explained in simple words how to be careful, and every repair that succeeded gave both species confidence and trust. And the captain walked among them, watching and sometimes speaking softly to guide small repairs, and he felt pride in his crew and gratitude to the humans, and he realized that without them, they would not have survived the long hours of darkness and cold and fear, and every small flicker of lights that returned made the ship feel more alive and more safe and more like home again. Riley moved through the corridors, checking on the work and making sure every human acted slowly and gently. And she spoke softly to the captain and the Thaleen crew in short sentences that could be easily understood, and they nodded, or repeated backwards to show they understood. And she watched how the aliens' bodies, once weak and trembling, now moved with small confidence, and she felt relief, because patience and care had begun to heal not only the systems of the ship, but also the fear inside the Thaleen. The scientists carefully examined the ship's navigation and communication systems and discovered some damage caused by a strange attack, and Riley and the captain discussed what might have happened in soft words, and they promised to help each other investigate, find the cause of the destruction. And the captain felt hope because he had not expected any ally in this part of the galaxy, and yet here were humans, offering help without question and with no demand, and he realized that sometimes strength came not from weapons or power, but from willingness to help and patience to guide. Outside the ship, the Pathfinder remained close, and the human crew monitored the surroundings with quiet focus because space was dangerous and unpredictable. They needed to be ready for anything while keeping the Thaleen ship safe, and Riley reminded her crew again and again to act with patience and gentleness, because they were not only rescuers, but also teachers and protectors, and they needed to show that humans could be careful as well as strong, and she saw how small gestures of kindness and care calmed the Thaleen even more than words, and she felt proud that her crew understood this deeply. During the work, a small group of Thaleen, who had been most afraid, began to assist with minor repairs in every success made. Them smile softly and laugh quietly, and the humans encouraged them with calm words and gentle gestures, and the aliens began to understand that humans could be trusted because every action matched every word, and they were learning to believe that not all strong species were dangerous or harsh, and Riley noticed this and felt satisfaction because trust had begun to grow in a way that could not be rushed. And one evening, the captain took a small walk through a repaired section of the ship and watched the humans finish a repair and explain it carefully to one of his technicians, and he saw the technician repeated the steps under guidance and succeeded, and the captain felt warmth and relief because his crew was learning and adapting, and the humans had created an environment where that could happen safely, and he realized that even though humans were from a violent and dangerous world, they had learned patience and care in a way that made them allies instead of threats, and he felt admiration that went deep into his heart. The medics finished their rounds and ensured everyone had enough oxygen and warmth, and no one was left behind, and the Thaleen began to relax fully, and some even began to explore small areas of the ship that had been off limits before, because the humans had restored safe conditions, and each new movement gave them small confidence and hope, and the captain realized that the humans had not only repaired the ship, but also repaired fear and despair, and he felt grateful in a way he could not express fully. Riley sat with the captain for a quiet moment and explained in soft words that they would continue to help, and that the humans were ready to stay as long as necessary to ensure everyone was safe, and she promised that no one would be harmed, and the captain felt a weight lift from his shoulders because he had feared the worst, and now he saw care and patience and strength together, and he understood that humans could be much more than the frightening stories he had heard in the past. As night passed on the ship, the Thaleen slowly adjusted to the presence of the humans and even began small conversations and exchanged gestures of thanks and simple smiles and laughter, and the humans responded with equal warmth and care, and the captain felt his heart open to this strange new species, and he saw that even small kindness could grow into deep trust and cooperation, and he thought about how fragile life could be, and how strong the right care could make it feel, and he smiled softly to himself. The engineers and medics worked in shifts, and the Thaleen observed and sometimes assisted under guidance in every small success made. The ship feels safer and more alive, and the captain and Riley discussed plans to continue repairs and possible next steps, and the captain felt hope because he had not known the humans, and now he knew them, and he realized that sometimes even the most frightening beings could be allies when patience, care, and gentle strength were combined, and he understood that the galaxy was wider and stranger than he had ever imagined, and that humans could be both powerful and gentle in ways the Thaleen had never seen before, and that thought made him feel a deep relief and trust that had seemed impossible just hours ago. The calm that had returned to the Thaleen ship lasted only a short time, because sensors on the Pathfinder detected incoming ships and Riley quickly gathered her crew and spoke in soft, clear words to prepare for possible danger, and the humans moved with calm efficiency, and the Thaleen watched in fear because the shadows of the attackers were approaching, and they recognized the shapes of the Harkonnen raiders that had attacked their ship before, and their bodies trembled with fear because they had no weapons strong enough to fight, and no defenses that could hold against these dangerous beings. And the captain looked at Riley and spoke softly, asking what they would do, and Riley reassured him that humans were ready and capable of protecting them, and she gave careful instructions to her crew to defend while avoiding unnecessary damage and to protect the Thaleen at all costs. And the captain felt a small relief knowing that the humans would not leave them to face the raiders alone. The Harkonnen ships arrived. With sharp movements, and the darkness of space was filled with their presence, and the Thaleen shivered because the raiders were larger and stronger and had cruel designs in their eyes, glinted with aggression, and the Thaleen had never imagined a fight so close. And Riley coordinated the Pathfinder's weapon systems carefully and spoke short, simple words to her crew, and every human moved with focus and determination, and yet patience, and the Thaleen watched in disbelief, because these beings called humans moved with purpose and control, and did not panic even when danger approached, and every defensive move was calculated and careful, and the humans showed their strength not with violence alone, but with skill and teamwork, and the Thaleen began to hope again because humans were protecting them. The first shots were fired, but they were precise and controlled, and the humans aimed to disable rather than destroy. And the Thaleen felt shock because the humans were using force, but not recklessly, and they were watching carefully to make sure the raiders could not harm anyone, and the captain whispered softly to his crew to remain calm and stay near safe areas, because he could see how humans could be dangerous to enemies, but safe for friends, and the Thaleen began to feel a new kind of respect for humans and a cautious trust that had grown from the hours of patience and care earlier, and they began to watch the humans act with skill and courage. Riley directed the humans in careful formations around the Thaleen ship, and the Harkonnen tried to maneuver aggressively, but the humans anticipated each move and adjusted with precise timing and coordination, and the Thaleen could barely believe what they saw, because the humans were acting like a living shield, and the captain whispered in wonder how beings that could survive so harsh a world could also move with such controlled care, and he felt awe mixed with relief and gratitude, and he realized that humans were not only rescuers, but protectors in ways that the Thaleen had never imagined, and that even in the face of danger, they could remain calm and capable. The raiders made a final approach, and Riley gave orders in simple words to fire precise disabling beams, and the Pathfinder's crew worked together perfectly, and the Harkonnen ships began to falter because the humans did not panic and did not waste power or energy, and the Thaleen could see that humans did not fight to kill without reason, but to protect. And that made the Thaleen feel safer and less terrified because the humans were controlling the chaos and turning it into a shield for them. And the captain felt his chest expand with hope and relief because he had never seen strength used with such purpose and care, and he realized that humans were exactly the kind of beings he wanted by his side in the darkness of space. The Harkonnen retreated finally, confused and surprised by the human strength and coordination, and the Thaleen watched as the raiders disappeared into the void and whispered softly because they had survived a real threat and humans had saved them, and they could hardly believe what had happened. And the captain felt tears rise in his eyes because he had feared the humans. This might be just as dangerous as the attackers, but instead they had shown controlled power and protection, and the crew began to thank the humans softly, and Riley responded with calm reassurance and said that their safety was her priority, and the Thaleen felt their trust deepen and their fear dissipate slowly, and the bond between the species strengthened. After the battle, humans quickly checked the Thaleen ship for new damage and repaired what could be fixed, and the Thaleen assisted under guidance, and every action was slow and careful, and each repair made the ship safer and restored confidence. And the captain felt warmth in his chest because humans had not only fought to protect them, but now continued to help them recover and rebuild. And he realized that humans could be both fierce in defense and gentle in care, and that combination was something entirely new and hopeful to the Tholene, and it made him feel admiration and gratitude that went deep inside him. Riley spoke softly to the captain and explained that they would remain nearby until the ship was fully functional, and the captain nodded with relief, because he knew that the humans would not leave them alone in danger, and he saw how organized and disciplined and caring they were, and he realized that humans had a sense of responsibility and courage that made them reliable allies, and he felt something he had not felt in a long time. True safety and trust, and he began to see a future where humans and Tholene could cooperate beyond this single rescue because humans had proven themselves not only strong but also capable of protecting and caring in ways that mattered most. Slowly, the Tholene crew began to move more freely around their ship under the watchful but calm guidance of the humans, and their fear began to change into cautious hope and even curiosity. And they asked small questions, and humans answered patiently and explained in simple words every step and every precaution, and the Tholene learned quickly because the humans had shown that patience and care could save lives and win trust as much as strength could win battles, and the captain felt deep relief. Because he had feared for his crew, but now he saw that even in the darkest moments, allies could appear, and the universe could offer protection when strength was combined with careful compassion. Riley and her crew continued to monitor the area and repaired minor systems and reassured the Tholene, and they worked quietly but efficiently, and the aliens began to see humans as beings who could fight with strength but also move with care and caution, and the captain realized that the stories of Deathworlders in the galaxy were only partly true, because humans could be strong and dangerous to enemies, but gentle and protective to friends, and he felt hope that this new understanding could change their future, and the Tholene began to imagine a time when humans might not be feared, but respected and trusted. And he knew that this first battle had shown them a side of humans no one had predicted, and it had built a bond that might last a long time, and the captain smiled softly because he had never felt so safe and so grateful in the void of space. With the Harkonnen gone and the immediate danger past, the Tholene ship began to feel safer and more like a home again, and the humans worked slowly to complete repairs and ensure the systems would remain stable, and every corridor had light and warmth, and the Tholene moved through their ship more confidently, and some even smiled for the first time in days, and the captain felt a strange warmth because he had never expected to see such kindness from beings he had been taught to fear. And yet here they were, showing patience, strength, care all at once. And he realized that humans were much more complex than the stories told in the galaxy. Riley and her crew stayed close by and monitored everything and explained every small action in simple words and gestures so that the Tholene could understand and participate if possible, and the Tholene began to help in small ways under guidance. And every success brought a new sense of pride and hope, and the captain watched quietly as the bond between species grew, and he felt relief because his crew was safe and learning and growing. And he understood that this was more than a rescue. It was a new beginning. Slowly, the Tholene began to move through repaired sections and explore areas they had not dared to enter during the attack, and they discovered that their ship could function again, and that life inside was possible, and the humans guided them gently, offering advice and encouragement and explaining every detail, and the Tholene began to trust that humans would not harm them, but rather teach them and protect them, and the captain felt awe because he had feared humans would be dangerous and unpredictable. And now he saw them as protectors and friends and allies in a galaxy full of unknown dangers. The scientists on both sides worked together to understand the damage and what had caused it. And Riley and the captain spoke quietly about possible threats and ways to avoid them in the future, and the Tholene realized that humans were not only strong but also smart and careful planners, and this made them feel safer than they had ever felt before, and hope grew in their hearts. Because they had learned that even beings called Deathworlders could be kind and reliable and capable of protection, and they began to imagine a future where they could survive even in the darkest parts of space. Slowly, the crew began to share small stories and laughter with the humans, and Riley smiled quietly as she listened to the Tholene speak of their home oceans and gentle rains and soft lights, and the humans shared small things about Earth in simple words and gestures, and the Thalian listened with fascination, and their fear melted away, little by little, and trust deepened, because every small exchange built understanding and friendship, and the captain felt gratitude and hope that this first meeting would not be the last, and that the bond created now could last through many challenges. As systems came back online fully, the Thalian began to feel independent again, and they assisted in minor repairs and learned from the humans how to prevent future damage, and Riley guided them in simple steps and gentle advice, and the Thalian worked with care and precision, and the captain watched with pride as his crew regained confidence and strength, and he realized that humans had given them not only safety, but ALS.